Welcome back to the 8th video of Data and Formula Integrity. In this video, we're going to be talking about Excel's built-in name manager and visibility tools, which will allow us to have better control over the spreadsheet's integrity. Let's jump right in and get started. Okay, so we have a brand new spreadsheet here, and let me just go ahead and quickly explain it. This is XYZ Company's profit and loss statement for the current year. And we have a real compressed version of this profit and loss statement. It has sales, has the cost of goods sold, which is the cost of the sales, and we have gross profit, which is the difference between these two. And then it goes into selling, general, and administrative expenses, and then it comes to a bottom line of the net profit or loss. And in this case, it's a profit of $79,000. Now I just want to point out the format of this spreadsheet. Notice that it has a title and it's emphasized. It has headers, and they're both emphasized as well. And then coming down here into the data portion, the data is formatted nicely. It has a calculation in the middle, which is emphasized. And then it comes down to a bottom line, which is emphasized as well. And really, I want to get rid of these grid lines. I think it looks cleaner without it. So I'm going to go to page layout, go to grid lines, uncheck view, and then they're gone. And the last thing I want to point out are these letter references, which help users understand what's happening in these calculated fields if the document is printed. So now that we understand how this spreadsheet works, let's go ahead and start learning more about this name manager and the visibility tools. And so let's assume that we're going to be making financial ratios based on this profit and loss statement. So I've set up a ratios tab, which has financial ratios and the names of the financial ratio that we're going to create, the calculation and how they're calculated, and then all we're going to do is fill in this value. Now our goal for these financial ratios is to figure out what is the best way to write these formulas so that our integrity will stay intact. So let's begin just by our normal way of writing a formula. Start with equals, and the calculation says gross profit divided by sales. So navigate back to this tab, hit gross profit divided by sales. I'm going to click enter, and it comes back as 32%. That's awesome. But is this the best way that we can write this formula? So if we open it up and hit F2, you'll see that it says integrity 8, C10 divided by C8, which doesn't really tell us much. It doesn't tell us that C10 is gross profit and C8 is sales because it's on a different tab and we can't see what that's referencing to when we open up the formula. This is what Name Manager helps us do. So let's go ahead and set that up. I'm going to hit enter. And let's navigate to the Integrity tab. And what we want to do here is we want to change the name of all of these cells to something more intuitive. So for example, this $1 million, it's on cell C8. And we really want to call it something more intuitive like sales. Or for this next cell, C9, we want to call it cost of goods sold because it just makes more sense. It's intuitive. And so what we can do is we can select the range, go up into the formulas ribbon, and here's where the name manager is at. And we can click name manager, and you can see we don't have any names set up right now. So you would go into new, and this is how you would set it up one by one. But since we have a whole bunch already selected, we can actually set this up quickly all at once. Then hit cancel, and then X out of here, and you can say create from selection. And it says create names from values in the left column. So this left column will be the name, which will refer to these cells in the right column. We'll hit OK, and we'll go back into this name manager, and you'll see that all of these names are created. And let's just double click into one just to see what it looks like. So admin expense, that's the name. The scope is where can this be used, and it can be used in the entire workbook. So any sheet that we have here, any worksheet, admin expense will be able to be used. And it's referring to cell C13 on integrity. So C13, admin expense, it will be $39,000. Let's click OK. Now that we have all of our names set up, let's go ahead and update our ratio formula to include them. Let's get out of here, navigate back to the ratios tab, and let's update this formula here with gross profit divided by sales. So press F2, and we want to get rid of this reference to the old sheet because this is meaningless. It's really just counterintuitive, and so what would be very intuitive is to type gross profit divided by sales. And as you can see here, Excel is already recognizing that gross profit is named range, and it recognizes it. So I can press tab and hit divided by and start typing sales. And again, Excel recognizes the named range. So I'm going to hit tab again, press enter, and we have 32% returned. So one more thing that we could do to make this a little easier on writing the formula would be if we could have this worksheet lined up right next to the integrity worksheet right here, this profit and loss statement. So let's navigate back to ratios. And what I'm saying is I would like to have this worksheet lined up with the integrity worksheet next to it, the profit and loss statement. Now to do this, we could use the visibility tools, the view tab on the ribbon, and we can open up a copy of our workbook. So this says open a second window for your document so you can work in different places at the same time. So let's go ahead and do that and see what happens. Okay, so this looks a little bit different. It's a little smaller. It says that it's 8:2 now up here, the name of the Excel sheet. And if I go back down to Excel's little menu of which workbooks we have open, it says 8:2 and then 8:1. So let's stay here and let's increase the size of this worksheet so we can see it. Control, and then I'm just scrolling up, and that looks about right. And I'm going to navigate back to the View tab on the ribbon. And now I want to use this Arrange All function, which will basically stack your open windows so you can see them all at once. So let's press that. This dialog box appears, and it's saying, how do you want to arrange these windows that are open? And we want to do vertically so that it's a vertical line with one on the left and one on the right. Let's press OK. And now they're stacked left and right. And the only difference here between these two pages is that this one has grid lines. So let's get rid of this grid line so they look the same. Page layout, remove grid lines on the view. And you can see it's just a mirror image on both sides. And it's the same workbook. So let's type this next formula. Equals net profit and loss divided by, and it's sales. You can see that over on the right here, it's actually updating that formula as well. So I'm just going to press enter, and both pulled back 8%. Perfect. Now working on the same worksheet isn't really helpful. So let's go ahead and navigate to the integrity tab and open up the profit and loss statement and start using this. So let's press equals for this next calculation, and it's cost of goods sold divided by sales. Since this is open now, let's go ahead and click and make our selections. So let's click cost of goods sold divided by sales. And there's two things I want you to notice here, is that Excel's pulled back the named range and not C8 and C9. And the next thing is that it's colored it red and blue, highlighting that this is the cell we're talking about and this is the cell we're talking about, which helps keep our worksheet to have integrity. Let's press enter, and let's type the next one, selling expense divided by sales. Here, we can't see anything happening on the right side, but just having it open, now we can see what we're talking about. Selling expense, all right, that's 135,000, and then sales, that's $1 million. So if we divide that by each other, we can make an educated guess on what that division will be now that we have them side by side. So 135 divided by $1 million is going to be roughly 13.5%, and it'll probably round it up to 14%. So let's just finish off this last one. So general expense divided by sales, tab, enter, equals admin expense divided by sales, tab, enter. And so it's as simple as that. Now that we have these financial ratios all filled in, we can go ahead and get rid of one of these workbooks. So it doesn't matter which one we close out of. So I'm going to click this one. And to make this maximized again, you can just hold the Windows key and hit the up arrow, and it'll maximize it, or you could obviously go to this maximize. But the cool thing about using your Windows key and using your arrows, if I use the Windows key and then arrow to the left, it's going to snap it back to half of my desktop view, and therefore I could put up another window over here and do the same logic of holding my Windows key and arrowing to the right. So say, for example, you had a PDF document that you were transferring into Excel. You could snap that to the right side of your desktop window just by using that Windows key and arrowing to the right. So I'm going to maximize this again, holding Windows key and arrowing up. And that wraps up Name Manager and the visibility tools.